Hey, welcome back. My name is Sushant Sutish, and I'm your trainer for this AZ-500 Azure Security Engineer Associate Certification course. We just finished Module 2. In this video, we're going to do a quick knowledge check on all the things what we have learned in this previous module. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. Let's look at the first question. Which of the following two features of Azure networking provide the ability to redirect all internet traffic back to your company's on-premises servers for packet inspection? You need to select two. So the correct answer is user-defined routes and force tunneling. You can use force tunneling to redirect internet-bound traffic back to your company's on-premises infrastructure. Force tunneling is commonly used in scenarios where organizations want to implement packet inspection or corporate audits. Force tunneling in Azure is configured via Virtual Network User-Defined Routes or UDR. Let's look at question number 2. You are configuring Azure Firewall. You need to allow Windows Update network traffic through the firewall. Which of the following should you use? You just need to choose one answer. So it is definitely not network rules or NAT rules or destination inbound rules. The correct answer is application rules. Application rule defines fully qualified domain names or FQDNs that can be accessed from a subnet. That would be appropriate to allow Windows Update network traffic. Let's look at question number 3. You would like to limit outbound internet traffic from a subnet. Which product should you install and configure? So the correct answer is Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall will let you limit the outbound IP address and port that can be accessed. You can define network rule that defines source address, protocol, destination port, and destination address. Let's look at question number 4. Your organization has a web application and is concerned about attacks that flood the network layer with a substantial amount of seemingly legitimate traffic. What should you do? The correct answer is create a DDoS policy. Creating a DDoS policy to provide defense against the exhaustion resources. This exhaustion could make an application unavailable to legitimate users, for example. Let's have a look at question number 5. You are deploying the Azure Application Gateway and want to ensure incoming requests are checked for common security threats like cross-site scripting and crawlers. To address your concerns, what should you do? The correct answer is install the Web Application Firewall. The Web Application Firewall, or WAF, is an optional component that handles incoming requests before they reach a listener. The Web Application Firewall checks each request for many common threats based on the Open Web Application Security Project or OWASP. Which services below are features of Azure Application Gateway? We need to select 3 answers. This is definitely not authentication. The correct answer is Layer 7 load balancing, offloading of CPU-intensive SSL terminations, round-robin distribution for incoming traffic. Azure Application Gateway is a dedicated virtual offering, offers Layer 7 load balancing capabilities for your application. It lets customers to optimize web farm productivity by offloading CPU-intensive SSL termination to the application gateway, round-robin distribution of incoming traffic, and cookie-based session affinity, URL path-based routing, and the ability to host multiple websites behind a single application gateway. Let's look at question number 7. You are configuring a network security group. All the following default rules except which one is right. So we have 3 right answers and 1 wrong answer. So the wrong answer here is, but which is the correct answer for the question, is allow internet inbound. NSGs have default inbound and outbound rules. There is a default allow internet outbound rule, but not an allow internet inbound rule. Let's look at question number 8. Your organization has web servers in different regions and you want to optimize the availability of the servers. Which of the following is best suited for this purpose? The correct answer is Azure Front Door. Azure Front Door lets you define, manage, and monitor the global routing for your web traffic by optimizing for best performance and instant global failover for high availability. Let's look at question number 9. Your organization has a security policy that prohibits exposing SSH ports to the outside world. You need to connect to an Azure Linux virtual machine to install software. What should you do? The correct answer is configure the Bastion service. The Azure Bastion service provides secure and seamless RDP and SSH connectivity to your virtual machines directly in the Azure portal over SSL. When you connect via Azure Bastion, your virtual machines do not need a public IP address. Let's look at question number 10. What type of disk encryption is used for Linux disk? The correct answer is DMCrypt. Azure Disk Encryption is a capability that lets you encrypt your Windows and Linux IaaS VMs disk. Azure Disk Encryption leverages the industry standard BitLocker feature of Windows and DMCrypt feature of Linux to provide OS and data disk encryption to help protect and safeguard your data. Let's look at question number 11. You need to ensure your virtual machines are kept up to date with security patches. Update management, including all of the following except which one? So the correct answer is update management only pertains to cloud deployed virtual machines. Update management pertains to virtual machines in on-premises environment and in other cloud environments as well. Question number 12. Which of the following is not a high severity security center recommendation for virtual machines and servers? You need to select one answer. The right answer is install endpoint protection solution on virtual machines. This is a medium severity recommendation. Privileged access workstations provide all the following except one. Protection against attackers who have gained administrative access. Privileged access workstation cannot protect against an attacker that has already gained access. Question number 14. To interact with Azure APIs, an Azure Kubernetes Service AKS cluster require which of the following? You need to select two answers. The correct answers are Azure AD Service Principal and Managed Identity. To interact with Azure APIs, an Azure AKS cluster requires either an Azure AD Service Principal or a Managed Identity. A Service Principal or Managed Identity is needed to dynamically create and manage other Azure resources such as Azure Load Balancer or Azure Container Registry. Let's look at question number 15. You are using Azure Kubernetes Service or AKS and needed to control the flow of traffic between pods and block traffic directly to the backend application. What should you do? Select one. The correct answer is create a AKS network policy. The principle of least privilege should be applied to how traffic can flow between pods in an Azure Kubernetes service cluster. The network policy feature in Kubernetes lets you define rules for ingress and egress traffic between pods in a cluster. Let's look at the last question. You are defining RBAC rules for the Azure Kubernetes security team. You need to grant permission across the entire cluster. Which two items would you define? You need to select two answers. So the right answer is cluster roles and cluster role bindings. Roles are used to grant permissions within a namespace. If you need to grant permissions across the entire cluster or to cluster resources outside a given namespace, you can instead use cluster role. Once the roles are defined to grant permission to resources, you assign these Kubernetes RBAC permission and with a role binding. Role bindings are used to assign roles for a given namespace. If you need to bind roles across the entire cluster or to cluster resources outside a given namespace, you can instead use cluster role bindings. Alright, so that concludes module 2. In the next video, we are starting module 3, and the first lesson we are going to learn in module 3 is all about Azure Key Vault. So I will see you on the next one. Till then, take care.